you please relax, man?
Okay, I won't say another word. I won't even make eye contact.
It was the show that defined a generation. But behind the laughter, something darker was unfolding.
They're laying it out there in a way that is their truth. I don't know if I'll read the book because I know the people.
That line didn't come from a stranger. It came from Carlton, from a man who stood beside Will Smith for 6 straight seasons. And now, won't even read his memoir. Why? Because what started as a sitcom became a battleground between ego and image, secrets and silence.
Absolutely loved the show, loved making it, but I can't watch it because it creates a certain amount of pain is associated with watching.
From the betrayal behind The Fresh Prince to the disturbing rumors connecting Will Smith to Diddy's federal scandal and the scene that exposed Will's deepest wound.
I don't have to do with Puffy, so y'all can stop all them memes. Y'all can stop all of that. I ain't been nowhere near no damn freak off.
This isn't just a reunion gone wrong. It's the unraveling of a friendship and the legacy they both tried to protect. So, what did Alfonso say? When Will Smith dropped his blockbuster memoir, Will, fans expected supportive reposts and inside jokes from his longtime co-star and on-screen cousin, Alfonso Ribeiro. What they got instead was silence. In an interview with Extra, Alfonso carefully distanced himself from the hype.
Laying it out there in a way that is their truth. I don't know if I'll read the book because I know the people.
Insiders said this wasn't about being busy. It was about resentment. Alfonso, they say, felt blindsided by the way Will framed certain Fresh Prince-era moments. And with all the personal revelations about his marriage and career in that book, maybe Alfonso felt like Will dragged him into a spotlight he didn't ask for. The silence didn't stop there. When Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the 2022 Oscars, the world froze. Hollywood flooded social media with hot takes, but Alfonso said nothing. No tweet, no interview, no reaction. And people noticed. According to sources close to the set, Alfonso didn't just avoid the press, he deliberately distanced himself from Will's PR mess. It was damage control by omission. Because for Alfonso, being associated with Will Smith's scandals, from the slap to the entanglement drama, was now more of a liability than a legacy. But that wasn't the first time tension bubbled beneath the surface. After The Fresh Prince ended in 1996, Will shot straight to Stardom, Men in Black, Ali, Independence Day. Alfonso? He faded into hosting gigs and reality TV, America's funniest home videos, Dancing with the Stars. Respectable, but nowhere near Will's level, and the gap only grew.
I have been typecasted to the point where it's almost impossible for people to see me doing something else.
Meanwhile, Will was collecting Oscars and dominating box offices. Some say jealousy was inevitable. He didn't show up for Will's bungee jump special, didn't comment on his Oscar win, and during the 2020 Fresh Prince reunion, fans noticed Alfonso skip the emotional segment between Will and Janet Hubert, Aunt Viv. A segment about healing, a moment meant to restore bonds. He wasn't there. Ribeiro has always insisted there's no beef, but when the cameras stop rolling, it's hard to ignore the pattern. Silent treatment, absences, subtle digs. And now, at 53, Alfonso isn't staying quiet anymore. The question is, why now? Maybe it's because he's finally ready to say it, that Will Smith didn't just take center stage, he never gave it back. After The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air ended in 1996, the difference in trajectories between its two male leads became impossible to ignore. Will Smith didn't just move on, he skyrocketed. He transitioned from sitcom star to a full-blown blockbuster icon. In the years immediately after the show, he headlined Independence Day, Men in Black, and later Ali, racking up critical acclaim and box office records. Alfonso Ribeiro, meanwhile, found himself boxed into a character that the world refused to let him outgrow. He was Carlton Banks now, and only Carlton Banks. That kind of disparity doesn't just sting, it defines you. And it followed Ribeiro everywhere. He was celebrated for the Carlton dance, even as he quietly grew frustrated with how that one role limited his career options. In an interview, he once said the role of Carlton was both the greatest and worst thing to ever happen to him. It stopped me from acting again, he admitted, because people couldn't see me as anything else. While Will's fame diversified, rapper, actor, producer, public figure, Alfonso found himself hosting game shows and reality TV. There's nothing wrong with that, but the contrast was glaring. And even though he rarely addressed it directly, fans could see the tension. There were subtle clues. Alfonso rarely spoke about Will in public interviews, and when he did, the tone was almost too professional. He never joined Will at any of his high-profile events. He skipped the bungee jump special celebrating Will's 50th birthday. He didn't post or congratulate him publicly after his Oscar win. And he certainly didn't speak out during the Oscars slap fallout, even though the entire cast of Fresh Prince was being contacted for reactions. The silence said more than words ever could. There were also signs of division during the 2020 Fresh Prince reunion, while the rest of the cast joined Will Smith and Janet Hubert for a historic on-camera reconciliation, symbolizing closure and healing after years of tension. Alfonso wasn't there for that specific moment. Fans noticed. The show positioned the absence as scheduling related, but behind the scenes, rumors swirled that Alfonso wanted no part in that emotional moment. Perhaps it was personal, or maybe it was about boundaries. Either way, it added to the growing sense that Alfonso had drawn a quiet but firm line. It's important to note that Ribeiro has never publicly lashed out at Will. He's always chosen the high road, even when the questions clearly made him uncomfortable.
Will Smith said you transformed his life with the way you worked on Fresh Prince. How does that make you feel to hear him say that?
Well, it was wonderful to hear him say that, obviously. Will is my brother for life, and our friendship and bond has now withstood the time of 4 or 5 decades.
But people in Hollywood talk, and behind the scenes, sources have long hinted at simmering resentment. The kind that doesn't explode, it just builds, year after year. One insider said it wasn't dramatic, just a long-term adjustment in how Alfonso sees Will. Another described their friendship as cordial but not close. Not anymore. And can you really blame him? When you share the screen with someone, help build a cultural juggernaut like the Fresh Prince, and still end up in their shadow, it leaves scars. Alfonso gave the world one of TV's most iconic sidekicks, and in return, he got typecast and sidelined. Meanwhile, Will Smith became a household name across the globe. So when people ask if Alfonso is jealous, maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe it's not about jealousy. Maybe it's about erasure, about how one man's rise became another man's glass ceiling. Because every time someone says, "Oh, you're Carlton," what they're really saying is, "We don't see you as anything else." And that kind of invisibility is a hard thing to live with. But there's another layer to this story, one that changes everything. For years, rumors about Will Smith's private life floated around like smoke without fire. Gossip blogs, fan theories, whispers about open marriages and odd friendships. But in 2025, everything changed. When federal prosecutors began releasing evidence tied to Sean Diddy Combs' alleged ficking operation, Hollywood panicked. And somewhere in the middle of that panic, Will Smith's name started surfacing. It started with one court release. In April 2025, federal prosecutors dropped bombshell images from the Diddy case. Blurry but very real photographs of male S-workers allegedly ficked through Diddy's parties. Faces were pixelated, identities sealed. But it didn't matter. Within hours, internet detectives were cross-referencing tattoos, jawlines, even body types. And just like that, the speculation started. A popular account on X posted the screenshots with the caption, "Why does one of them look like a certain A-list actor?" That post alone racked up hundreds of thousands of views. Not because people believed it, but because they were already ready to believe it. Will Smith's name wasn't officially on any list. His face wasn't identified in any leaked image. But none of that mattered, because his name had already been circling these allegations for months. From Keefe D claiming he saw Will and Jada at a strange Illuminati-style party hosted by Diddy, to old rumors about freak-off tapes and hidden footage now allegedly in FBI hands, Will had already been part of the conversation. The court leaks just reignited everything. And when that baby oil comment came out, when Will Smith said, "I don't even like baby oil," it was a direct reference to the seizure report.
I don't even like baby oil. I haven't said that publicly. I just did. Y'all the first time.
The feds had found cases of baby oil and personal lubricants stored in Diddy's hotels. Over 1,000 bottles. So when Will tried to laugh it off, it only made people lean in closer. Because no one thought he was joking anymore. And the worst part? This isn't just another internet rumor. It's part of a federal trial. A real investigation. With real victims. And for someone like Will, who spent the last few years clawing back public respect after the slap, the entanglement scandal, and Jada's bombshell book tour, this is the last thing he needed. The leaked images may not show him, but the fear that they could? That's enough to send any PR team into overdrive. And Will Smith's people, they've been scrambling ever since. You see, Will Smith's PR team is known for keeping things polished. Even when Jada Pinkett Smith publicly humiliated him on her book tour, even when August Alsina confirmed the entanglement, they kept the story on brand, controlled, safe. But the Diddy trial changed all that, because it's now part of a criminal investigation involving federal surveillance, lawsuits, and whistleblowers. And Will's name keeps coming up. All of this is happening at the exact moment Will Smith is trying to repair his image. After the slap, after Red Table Talk, after the public found out Jada never even wanted to marry him.
I really didn't want to get married, but...
We only got married because Gammy was crying.
I was under so much pressure, you know, being a young actress, being young, and I was just like pregnant. And I was just like, I didn't know what to do.
His team is trying to pull off the impossible, rebuild a reputation while dodging federal-level scandal. And every time Diddy's name makes headlines, so does Will's. For years, rumors followed Will Smith like a shadow. Whispers about his private life, open marriage, and close friendship with actor Dwayne Martin kept resurfacing. But they were never taken too seriously. Not until now. In 2023, everything changed when Bilal, Will Smith's longtime personal assistant of over 40 years, came forward with a jaw-dropping accusation. In an interview with Tasha K, he claimed he personally walked in on Will and Dwayne Martin having a S encounter inside Dwayne's dressing room.
I open the door to Dwayne's dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having a with Will.
Let me process that for a second.
There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up, killing him.
This wasn't internet speculation. It wasn't fan fiction. It was a first-hand claim from someone who worked directly with Will for decades. And it blew up fast. Jada Pinkett Smith quickly went on The Breakfast Club and called the allegations ridiculous and malicious. She promised legal action, claimed it was an extortion attempt.
About the allegations, there's like, you know, like so many rumors. Anything you want to say? We suing. I know that's right. Thank you.
But here's the strange part. No lawsuit was ever filed. No cease and desist. No court documents. Just words. For a couple who has threatened lawsuits in the past and followed through, this sudden silence raised even more suspicion. Meanwhile, Keefe D., the former South Central Crip involved in Tupac's murder case, said he saw Will and Jada at a Diddy-hosted Illuminati-style party years ago. According to him, the atmosphere was bizarre, filled with strange characters, undertones, and a vibe that didn't feel right.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of weird that whole yeah, weird, dude. Yeah, bunch of, it ain't right. You know what I'm saying?
Another insider, Gene Deal, claimed Diddy's homes were filled with hidden cameras, not just for surveillance, but allegedly for blackmail. He said everything was being recorded, who entered, what they did, who they did it with. And he confirmed that federal agents have since confiscated this footage as part of the ongoing investigation into Diddy's alleged tea-ficking operation. That's where things get terrifying for Will Smith. According to Whispers Online, and a now-deleted clip that briefly circulated, Will Smith allegedly appears on one of the recovered tapes. The video was quickly scrubbed from the internet, but not before users claimed it showed him participating in freak-off activity with Diddy. Whether that tape is real or fake, we don't know. But the fact that it was immediately removed, and no one from the Smith camp issued a legal threat, has fans raising eyebrows. On top of that, Orlando Brown has repeatedly accused both Will and Diddy of him as a teen.
House took all my start my family members and all kind of bro. You a up person. Yes, Will Smith is Michael Jackson.
He's erratic, sure, but he's also not alone. Jaguar Wright made similar claims.
Hey, young man, come on over. My husband just wants to touch you for a little while on camera. I promise you, you won't feel a thing. Sniff this.
So why haven't Will and Jada sued any of these people? That's the question fans keep asking. Because when someone lies on you this consistently and this publicly, the silence becomes deafening. And in the court of public opinion, silence sounds a lot like guilt, especially when there are tapes. Anyway, as for his role on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, most people think it launched Will Smith's career. And that's true, in a way. But what they don't realize is that the only reason Will took the job was because he was broke. Flat broke. Before he was America's most bankable movie star, Will Smith was just a 21-year-old rapper drowning in IRS debt. His early success with DJ Jazzy Jeff made him rich fast enough to buy luxury cars, designer clothes, and even a new mansion. But there was one thing Will didn't do: pay his taxes. By the time the IRS caught up with him, he owed over $2.8 million in back taxes.
They came to get their money, and I didn't have it, so they took everything else. So really? It was that.
His career had hit a wall. His follow-up albums were flopping, and no one in the music business was giving him a lifeline. He needed something, anything. That lifeline came, not from acting school, not from auditions, but from a chance meeting on the Arsenio Hall show. That's where Will met producer Benny Medina. Medina had a concept based loosely on his own life, a street-smart kid from the inner city moving in with wealthy relatives. It sounded ridiculous to Will. He wasn't even an actor, but Benny believed in him. Soon after, Quincy Jones, the legendary producer and industry giant, invited Will to audition at his mansion. In that room were NBC executives, managers, and production heads. Will had 10 minutes to memorize the script, and Quincy pushed him hard. "You've got to do it now," Quincy reportedly said. "You'll never be more ready than now." Will did it. He crushed it. The room exploded, and just like that, he had the lead role. But here's the part most fans don't know. For the first 3 seasons of Fresh Prince, 70% of Will Smith's paychecks went straight to the IRS. He was acting on a hit network show, with millions watching every week, and most of his paycheck never even made it to his hands. This wasn't a breakout moment. It was survival. Will wasn't just building a career. He was digging himself out of a financial grave. And maybe that's why he worked so hard to protect the image that show gave him. The squeaky clean, wisecracking, lovable rebel. Because behind the jokes and the Air Jordans was a man being financially crushed and playing a role he didn't even want at first. So when you fast forward to today and see Will Smith under fire again, this time over scandal, over blackmail tapes, over ties to Diddy, it raises a deeper question. What part of his success was ever truly his? And what part of it was controlled by Quincy, by producers, by networks, or by the system that gave him a shot, only because he was desperate enough to say yes to anything? Even the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the role that made him, was never really about building art. It was about paying off debt. And for Alfonso Ribeiro, watching Will be handed a lifeline when he'd trained for years to be taken seriously, that had to sting. Because if Will wasn't the best actor in the room, he was the best timed one. Will Smith's entire career may have started from desperation, but it was held together by something even more complex. Pain. The kind you don't talk about. The kind you bury under a smile, a punchline, or a box office role. And nowhere is that pain more obvious than in the single most iconic scene from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It comes in the episode, Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse. Will's father, Lou, re-enters his life after years of abandonment, only to disappear again. And in the final scene, when Will breaks down in Uncle Phil's arms, the world stood still. Fans cried. Critics praised the acting. But what they didn't realize was that Will wasn't acting.
Birthdays without him. He never even sent me a damn card. To hell with him!
That moment wasn't on the page. It came from Will's own life. Years later, in interviews, he admitted that scene tapped into his own childhood trauma. The years of growing up with an abusive father, the memory of watching his dad hit his mother, and the unresolved anger he carried into adulthood. In 2019, on The Graham Norton Show and later on Red Table Talk, Will talked openly about the fear and shame that shaped his worldview. "I watched my father punch my mother in the face," he said, "and I won't create a space like that in my home." But here's the tragic irony. While Will was determined not to repeat his father's violence, he did inherit something else: silence, suppression, the performance of strength. And that need to protect the brand, to keep everything controlled and shiny, became his undoing. That fatherless breakdown scene has since become a meme, a monologue, a performance masterclass. But for Will Smith, it was a warning sign. It was the first public crack in a mask he would spend decades trying to hold in place. And maybe that's why Alfonso Ribeiro's quiet distance cuts so deep. Because he was there when the mask was first built. He stood on set, episode after episode, watching Will channel all that hurt into laughs, swagger, and stardom. Alfonso saw the pressure before the world did. He watched Will rise from financial ruin to superstardom, while quietly struggling to keep his own name relevant. And through it all, he never broke character. Until now. Now, in 2025, that mask is shattered, and the questions are no longer about stardom, but about complicity, accountability, and how long Will has been hiding behind a carefully crafted image. With the Diddy trial exploding, tapes allegedly in federal hands, and names being leaked daily, the image of Will Smith as America's sweetheart is almost unrecognizable. And perhaps Alfonso Ribeiro, once called Carlton, once written off as jealous, knew this day would come. Because The Fresh Prince wasn't just a show, it was a cover story, a PR miracle born out of tax debt, a sitcom hiding a broken man, a breakout role that now looks more like a mask, one built out of fear, shame, and the need to survive. And maybe that's why Alfonso never read the book. Maybe he didn't need to. Because when you've seen behind the curtain, when you've watched someone become the myth in real time, you already know how the story ends. Not with applause, but with silence. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.